Thank you. Hey, good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. If we can stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, thanks for being here on this cold, rainy day that 1 minute you need a jacket and a sweater, and the next minute you're like, but it's May. What is going on? Okay. So we'll move through this. Just want to say, and Patrick will speak more about this, but just, congratulations to Dawn Lee as our teacher of the year for Saginaw County. We're, very proud of her. She's an awesome teacher, and we're really thrilled to hear about that. And Aurora, your last meeting here. So congratulations. And, you've been a great asset. You've participated, loved all your opinions and coming in and asking the questions and being a part of it. And for the record, where are you going to college?
Harvard.
Awesome. And what are you studying?
Astrophysics.
That's awesome. Well, you're going to have to keep us posted. That sounds like it's going to be really exciting. So congratulations on that. And we just really have loved having you here. And you've shown Charlie the way. So he can take over for next year. So thanks for all your help. And I hope you're, got a good summer planned before you take off. And Patrick, go ahead. All right. Thank you. All right. Always nice when we have good news to share. All right. If we can go to approving the minutes, April 28th.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. And you second. Any other questions, concerns? All in favor? Thank you. Any adjustments to the agenda today? No, we're all good. And public session, unless, nope, nobody's here to do that. Okay. So let's go straight to the student board report.
All right. Well, for starters, I want to add on to your congratulations to Miss Lee. Every one of the students is so proud of her. We've all used her resources and talked to her at least once in our time at Morris, and we're so proud of her. To further what she's been doing, on May 29th, the Unified Literacy class is going to hold an art and writing gala where the class is going to display art and poetry they've written over the past semester. Ms. Lee wants everyone to know there's going to be snacks and beverages, if that'll get you to come. May 29th, yes. In the theater department, musical theater night is the May 30th and 31st, where the musical theater class is going to perform some fun songs and dances for everyone. Regarding Bath Tech, this Thursday is their senior celebration, which is also their graduation. For some more specific shout outs, every single CNA student and all the electrical engineering students passed their final exams. So huge congratulations to every one of them.
And then moving on to athletics, it is championship season, and all sports are working to make playoffs for a shot at state championships. Some notable performances. Per usual, we have senior Shaylin Brochu on a recent tear, snagging school records in the 800 meter, 1600 meter, and 3200 meter, also known as the distance trio. And she's now set her mind on breaking the state record in the coming weeks by shaving off just 3 seconds from her time. For unified sports, we recently hosted the Special Olympics last week, and the organizer, Charlie Bingham, was selected for his work in unified sports here at Morse, along with 7 other unified sports ambassadors in the U.S. for a trip to Bulgaria, sponsored by the DOE to help better establish unified programs for especially abled children and adults there. This past Saturday, we had prom, and that was a hit. It was Secret Garden themed, and it was a lot of moving plants back and forth from teachers from the school to the freight shed back and forth. My car has a lot of dirt in it. And then some scholarship opportunities coming up are we have the academic awards ceremony this Thursday, which includes junior book awards, which are college-specific scholarships for juniors. And then we also have scholarship night for seniors on June 5th, funded by the Alumni Association and local businesses. and will provide approximately $330,000 this year for more seniors. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Superintendent's report?
Yeah, again, just another congratulations to Dawn. I think that's our 7th or 8th Saginaw County Teacher of the Year since the inception. And I do want to give credit to Educate Maine. They really do a nice job of County Teachers of the Year. Before, it used to just be one Maine Teacher of the Year. And so the ceremony they do at the Hall of Flags is really, it's really classy. It's well done. And it's a nice way for more people to be recognized for their work. So congratulations. I do want to mention too, the other nominees this year from the district were Shannon Heath, who's a elementary teacher at Fisher Mitchell, and we had Jeff Bickford, who's a middle school math teacher, and we had Abby Baker, who's one of our CPP teachers here at Morse. So congratulations to everyone. Just wanted to mention this. I mean, the board has seen it. I'm not going to read the letter. I don't have it with me tonight, but the food service letter that I sent you, I just think it's a nice way of really hitting home. It was from a student here at the high school writing to the food service people here at the high school about the difference that they've made in his life and overcoming some obstacles in his life. And it just goes to show you that no matter your role here in RSU1, it's important. Ray Bernier, our Bath Tech carpentry instructor, was recognized by Rotary as a Paul Harris Fellow and was donated $1,000 to recognize his work that will go forward towards, I believe, for scholarships. Davenport, I had you sign a thank you letter today, but Davenport Fund does so much for our students and families, and some people don't take maybe advantage of it as they should, but very generous. And we're always sending them thank you notes because we feel it's the right thing to do to thank them every time they support us, from the Olympia Snow opportunities here to just summer programming to mental health support for our students and families. So they're giving $44,000 worth of scholarships to youth this summer from RSU1 to go to summer camps, overnight camps, day camps, anywhere in the area here. Just some things coming up. May 21st, that's Wednesday, we have the Mainsail Award. Any of you are welcome. If you've never been, it's worth coming. And I know you have full-time jobs, but I think it's at 9, is it? You guys know, 9 o'clock or 9:30. If you're interested, just email me and I can meet you at the front door. But it's just a great community event where somebody from our community is recognized for the impact that they've had on our students. Thursday, Bath Tech graduation on the 29th. You can see this in the backup, but it's adult ed graduation, and that's being held in SAD 75 at Mount Arrett High School this year. And then we have the celebrations of learning next year at BMS, and at June 8th, we have it at Phippsburg. And then June 8th is at Phippsburg. June 8th is graduation. June 13th is Phippsburg celebration of learning. And then the last thing is just update on school construction. Is right now they've said that they hope that they will have a list that would go forward to the State Board of Education in July. And then there's a certain period of time for appeals. And then once that appeal process is complete, which usually, I don't know how long it takes, maybe it takes a month or two, that by the fall, there would be that final priority list of school projects going forward. So that's all I have.
All right. Any questions for Patrick? You want to do the finance?
Yeah, I'm not as articulate as Deb on this, but you can see the report is for April 30th, and so our 10th month into the year, and we're at 74% of the budget. And last year we were at 75, so it's very similar. And you can see under encumbered, that 6 million mark. Deb informed me we have 9 pay periods left in this year. And then if you're under revenues, very similar again. We're at 85% right now. We were at 86% last year. So Deb is feeling very good about where we are right now, and we'll be able to let you know, obviously, not probably in our August meeting, where we were with carry forward and what we had left from this year's budget.
Yeah. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Patrick. We just have the old business, nothing under it. Was there any old business? No. Okay. 10.0 new business. So Katie, you want to tell us about the ESEA?
Yes, so the ESEA funding is our federal funding from Title I, II, and IV. And this is what we've been waiting to hear on. And we're also required annually to present this information as part of receiving the funds. So as you can see, there's a list at the very top of what we've received the past several years. The money for FY26, so next year, has not been released yet, which is very abnormal. Usually by now, we've known it for at least a month. When I reached out on Friday to the DOE one last time, just so I could be prepared for today, you can see the quote that I put there, message from the DOE. It's a screenshot of what they're essentially prepared to share so far. And they write, well, we believe the US DOE is working on these. They have not been able to provide us with a timeline for when we can expect them. Once we get them, we are prepared to turn them around to the field as fast as we can. In terms of things like public comment for FY26, which is what we're required to do right now, we are encouraging folks to use last year's figures and make clear that these are estimates and changes may need to be made to ESEA plans if allocations come in lower than in previous years. The slide below is what they shared in that same email. They said they've been passing along for people in my position to share with their boards. I think that the second two bullet points are the most important to identify, which is the rumor is that they are working on these and that the funding is likely to be level, meaning it'll be around the same amount. So that's what we know so far. So if you can see, last year for FY25, we had about 480,000 for Title I, about 93,000 for Title II, and 49,000 for Title IV. And so the plan under use of funds, we're going to use the same plan as we normally do for how we spend our funds. So essentially, in years past, we spend the majority of it on our interventionist at Dyke Newell and Fisher Mitchell, because those two schools qualify as targeted assistance schools, and that's where you're required to spend that money because of their free and reduced lunch populations. And then part of those funds, there's a certain percentage that has to go towards homeless students. We spend that on transportation. And there's also a certain percentage of that total that you are required to spend on parent funds. And we do the same. Just so the board knows, the past few summers, what we've done for students, and it's supposed to be money we spend on family. So we actually buy book packets for kids that go home in backpacks, and it's so they have a library of their own on their reading level for the summer, and they're supposed to keep those books for forever. So it's money we essentially contribute to families. So that's one of the required pieces. So those backpacks are ready to go home. And then the Title II funds, which is the other two things we spend these funds on overall, would be professional development. When there's some money left over, it's usually around 5,000 of the total. And then we do fund one teacher through Title II and always have, so we can reduce the number of students in our class sizes in one of those schools, depending on where the largest grade level falls. So the student enrollment in each class can be fewer. So instead of 3 teachers, if you add a 4th in, the number of students is going to be lower across that grade level in that school. And that's one of the recommended ways to spend that money. And so as soon as I know the numbers, I'll have Patrick, probably, unless it's all the way until our next June meeting, I'll have Patrick email them to you in a Friday email. But essentially, the plan is the same for how we'll spend the money, and hopefully the money will be level or just a tiny bit lower, like it's proven to be over the past few years. So any questions on that?
Thank you for the report, Katie. So if there's a reduction in SNAP eligibility, does that reduce the number of free and reduced hot lunch eligibility that we have? If some of those programs change, or any of Medicare, any of those programs change, like that's what we use for free and reduced hot. We don't really have that many applications any longer, do we?
Our applications so there's two numbers that we collect. One is direct service numbers, essentially, which are students who qualify through the state and other services they get for support. The other is families who identify themselves under the old system essentially as, because of their income, free or reduced lunch.
Mhm.
We still collect both. And actually, because of our new online system that students use to enroll themselves now, and because of the work that Kim has done getting nearly 100% of our families to respond, we have more accurate numbers than ever before.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So if we lose that direct service eligibility, we'll still have the applications as backup to
Yes.
be able to. Okay.
And I'm not sure, we'd have to ask Melissa Cole, I don't know, or Deb, how all that funding works for the nutrition piece, but we would collect all that data no matter what.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. That's wonderful. And for the
Anything to add, Kim?
Only that the economic status data does not apply to federal funds.
Right. We collect it and we can use it for state reporting.
So would we lose Title I qualification if we?
The only way we would lose Title I qualification is if the whole state lost it,
Oh, okay.
which they're telling us right now is unlikely.
Okay.
And that would be because of what's happening at the federal level.
Okay.
Yeah. Our numbers are, the way things are calculated, our numbers are solid enough and have been over time that we personally wouldn't only be impacted. It would be the whole state system of funding that would be impacted.
Okay. And the school that gets the PD, the additional teacher, has that been one specific school in the past? Does that usually?
It's
Dyken Newell or
usually
Fisher-Mitchell?
Fisher Mitchell,
Okay.
but the PD goes to everybody across all schools.
Okay.
The teacher has to be in one of those two schools.
Okay.
Other questions? So yeah, the big concern is because they keep talking about even if they changed it, then money might just come to the state directly, right? Versus, I mean, they were talking about if they got rid of DOE or if they're, on the
Right.
federal level.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially, we've been assured that the money is definitely locked in through September, likely all year for at least this year. So they've told us not to worry about right now. I think
Right.
it'll be interesting to see what happens next
will.
year with everybody's funding.
Exactly.
But that has nothing to do with us personally.
No, right,
It would
right.
be however the state deals with whatever
Just
happens
dealing with
federally.
whatever is
Yeah,
going on. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, so 10.2, it's the transition of FAPE from CDS to RSU1, and this is a discussion, kind of just clarification, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if the board wanted to, take a vote in one way or the other. We put it as a discussion, but it doesn't require one. But you know that this is an expectation. I think it's by 2027 that all districts in Maine would take over FAPE for 3 and 4-year-olds. And we've reported out to you this year that our committee made up of teaching staff, administration, YMCA, Head Start. So we had about 8 or 10 people on this committee, and we did a lot of talking. We brought people in from CDS to talk to us. We met with DOE people, and we just felt like there was a lot of unanswered questions with both 3 and 4-year-olds and the number of students we were dealing with, but also just it felt like a lot to us to have both sets, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And then for some reason, the DOE this spring decided that school districts could just assume the responsibility for 4-year-olds if you chose to. And so we got the committee back together And we did some looking. I think I shared with you 15 students with IEPs, 5 in Child Find. And we have looked at students, and we don't have all the answers right now, but we have quite a bit of information about where they're located, where they're going to pre-K next year. And so there's a certain percentage, a good percentage, that are already within our programming, with it, whether it's the YMCA or at our schools or at Head Start. And what this, in simple terms, what this means is that we would take over providing their services to them, and it would not be CDS any longer. We can still collaborate with them, and if we need some help from them, we can certainly ask them for help. And so I tried to give you as much information as I could. I had what I felt was a very productive meeting last week with one of the head finance people from the state, who reassured me on some questions. And so we would receive around $350,000 to be able to do this. And it's quarterly payments from the Department of Education. They start June 1st and they come, I'm sorry, July 1st, October 1st, January 1st, and April 1st. And so that $350,000 would be split into, 80 and change payments that we would receive. Deb would have to do quarterly reports to show how we're spending the money and make sure it's appropriate. But this is in statute, and it's the legislature is the only body that could overrule this at some point in the future. And I think right now there might be 18 to 20 school districts that are already doing 3- and 4-year-olds. We've talked to them. York and Kittery is one example that's, I would say York is similar size to us. And so that's what we were looking out for. And Boothbay has done it, but they're much smaller. Next year, Wiscasset is doing both 3- and 4-year-old, and so is SED 75. So we have some area partners as well. So there are state funds, not federal. And again, this is not part of EPS or our 279 state funding. This is totally separate from that. And all costs are covered by the states. And I didn't want to bore you with this, but this is the statute here. And it's very specific in here that talk about how the funding formula for this works, and also that must be provided at 100% state share. And with the conversation we had last year is that if we have an extenuating circumstance that's legitimate, it could be any, like we have this influx of or more speech that we need, or more OT, PT, something comes up, that they will make us whole as far as covering those costs within that fiscal year, as long as we provide our quarterly reports and we communicate with them and everything is organized. So the bottom line is we feel like it's good for students, because right now we have students that are 3- and 4-year-olds. Nobody's fault, really. CDS is not tied to a school. It's just hard to find those service providers. So we have students that are going without services right now, or they might be receiving remote services, which isn't really what we'd like to see for certain things. We have some of those service providers in our school. I'm not suggesting that we can make it work with just them, that we would have to look to see if we can employ, for example, a speech person, or increase the contracted services that we have with a company right now, for example. One idea we have, which again, this isn't carved in stone, but one idea is to hire a director, part-time, 50% director and a 50% teacher that would have to have a certain certification. And so therefore that person is responsible for making sure that these 15 to 20 students, that they know exactly what these students need for services. They're the person that oversees those, as well as they're teaching as part-time as well. And then again, OT, PT, speech tends to be the biggest one that we need to find for services. So I'll stop there. Katie, do you want to add anything? I know you haven't been as involved with this one, but our principals and the whole committee just again feel like it's the right thing to do. Right now we're doing transition CDS meetings for students coming into kindergarten. Those wouldn't need to happen, because we would, so to speak, oversee all of this education and services throughout the year. It just sets our students up for more success, we believe. And again, I'm not trying to be negative at all towards CDS. It's just so spread out, and it can't do the job that a school system can. And this year, for the first time, we've had CDS reach out to us when we've needed a service and said to us, hey, if you can find somebody, we'll do a contract with you. and we'll reimburse you. And that's been a nice suggestion. And this just takes it one step further. That's all. So I'll stop there and to see what questions you have.
Oh, I don't want to. I didn't quite I couldn't find in rulemaking, in the legislative process that usually I'm familiar with, where the funding formula came from, except for in statute. And so I was unclear a little bit about how they went about the funding formula and how it could change potentially. So I had a good conversation with DOE today. And some of the things that they said that I asked, like, what goes into that funding formula? For example, if we have to provide, if the students are served in a building that has debt financing, is debt financing part of what they would consider part of this funding formula? And the person I was talking to wasn't the financial person, but they said they could get back to me because they didn't think that was included. I asked them in the funding formula, did it take consideration for school systems that had, higher than average contracted labor fees, or benefits or other things? And they said that wasn't in the funding formula. And I was just asking the funding formula questions just to try to kind of get really clear to when they say they're going to cover 100% of the costs. What's all the intrinsic costs? This is not a fee for service contract that we could have had. This is in statute. So they didn't get granular. What I understood is they didn't get granular to how much more will it cost our system for more head counts, from everything from insurance, wear and tear, transportation, and all those things that go within that. Again, I'm not saying I don't support it. I think it's a great program. I'm just trying to get that sense of how can we do the right research and the homework to find out how expensive this is going to be, and where are all those fold-in costs that keep kind of ballooning on us when we don't know about, for the additional staff person, the additional this, the additional that don't really ever come in as a line item. They just kind of keep blowing up the expenses that we have. The other thing they said is that there's a flat fee for the child find services. And if that goes over, they did tell me that they are willing to consider overages in any cost area. One of the things that was pointed out to me was, which I asked, which they volunteered before even asking, but I asked about what happens if a student comes in and needs out of district placement, which could be a huge cost. That's not our exposure right now, and they said they would cover that 100%. Again, this is just conversation, which I was relieved. At least, there are some of those considerations. They did point out that they're early in this process, and for figuring out, does this funding meet the expectations? They've only got a couple of quarters of data that they haven't, DO told me today, they haven't really researched to find out how is this funding working in terms of what the costs are. They didn't have a lot of overages in the programs that they've been doing, but as you start a program, it's pilot and it's small, and all of a sudden it starts to barrel and get ahead of you. So, it sounds like they're in the process of finding out what they do need. They mentioned to me that there might be some additional funding outside the funding that's available for early adopters. They weren't really clear about that to say how much that was a consideration or not. I didn't know if that came into your decision to kind of move forward on this earlier. But it does worry me that we're not heading into another situation, especially after doing this after we've passed the budget, where we're continuing to fund programs that start with free money, I'm going to call it, and then end up coming back to the local contribution. And that can either happen when that money goes away out of statute, or the budget cannot get passed, so there's no funding there. I mean, they don't have to change the statute. They simply just don't have to pass a budget from the state perspective. And we end up coming back to the local fund, the local budget. So I'm a little worried about this being yet another one of those situations that we'll love it, we'll want it. It starts out with free money, people get so dependent on it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a transfer from what should really be a state service to the local cost. And I did ask, and they kind of laughed at me, but long ago, the pension cost to teachers used to be funded by the state. And so now the state has taken all that pension funded expectations that it paid their staff members and now it's transferring it over to public education. They're paying for it now, but doesn't mean they're always going to pay for that complete cost. So to me, it didn't sound like they had enough of information and enough experience with the data they were getting to really know how this is going to play out for the ultimate cost at the school level. So I'm a little hesitant in branching into this now, especially since we just passed the budget. Even though it's not a budget cost, it's like something that maybe should have been rolled into our whole budget process in terms of we're taking on this another obligation for the next school year. It's just kind of like an after effect thing, and I think it should have had that rich discussion and been part of what we were doing. So I don't know if it's something that we have to do for next year or something that we're wanting to do for other reasons. I guess more would be my questions.
And Jen, I asked every question that you asked because I knew you would ask these questions tonight. So I appreciate you reaching out, even though, I think we've done our due diligence on this one. I understand your point about maybe we're late to the game, and I think we had reservations about 3 and 4 year olds, but now that it's 4 year olds, and we're going to be forced to do this. I think we're one of 2 or 3 states in the country that don't have. Yeah. And so we're going to be forced to do this. And I think our committee felt with that change and flexibility that we would give us a year to work out the kinks, learn before we get a bigger pot of students and more complex budget, and learn from this. I have talked to one school system that confirmed with me that they did have an extenuating circumstance, and they did their homework. They communicated with the DOE, and they were awarded more money than what they received originally. When I have the head of or one of the top people in the finance department that says, Pat, we don't have an obligation. This is in statute. And if the legislature were to change their mind, I mean, this isn't just RSU1, this is across the whole state of Maine. And so again, it's 100%. It goes through per pupil. It talks about the high cost placements in here. I can give you a copy of this. So I think you've been clear about your concern around us taking on things during COVID and grant things, and then they go away, like the Lincoln County Health we have it for another year. I see this one as a little different because it's a state mandate that we're going to have to do at some point. Now we have flexibility, and it's in here that it's 100% state funded. And as that person said to me this week, who I trust and have worked with for a while, that they'll stand by that, and if we have an extenuating circumstance, they'll make that right as well. So we feel like it's in the best interest of kids. No, we don't have to do it. We can put it off another year, and I don't know if that option would still be there. We can just do 4 next year and then 3 the year after, or whether we'd have to jump on with 3 and 4 year olds. We just see students that are not getting services and feel like we could improve and provide those services to students. I don't have all the answers sitting here today about how many students needs, I mean, we have it back at the office, but how many are set up to get speech versus OT-PT. And then we have to look at our students next year. And again, if we have a speech person that has a little room in their schedule, then that's what we might do versus contracting out. So I think that amount of money based on what we need to do looking at those students seems fair. So obviously we would come back to you with reports of how we're spending that money, where we're at with it, and we'd have to do the same with the DOE. So other questions that people have.
I just have a comment, I guess.
Yeah.
So like with everything, if you catch it early and address it early, it saves you money down the line. So I think it's a really good thing that we try to help these kiddos now, and saves a lot of extra work and teachers down the line, I think.
And the position that you were talking about, teacher or program, whatever coordinator, falls within that budget. I mean, we wouldn't be paying for that. I mean, it's going to be paid for by the budget.
And I think we're trying to be aware of our current staffing, not to overtax people. So for example, new special ed director coming in, our principals, I mean, their plates are full. And so having someone that oversees this, and again, we're not ruling out that, again, we have 2 neighbors that are doing this along with us. I think, again, I believe they're both doing 3 and 4-year-olds. We could end up sharing a coordinator with them. That's not out of the question. I don't think we feel like we need a full-time coordinator, but that's what our committee's this year has done a lot of research on all of the private daycares, in addition to the ones we know here and in our local area. We've made a list of all the service providers that we could reach out to if we move in this direction. But again, we kind of didn't feel we were ready to take on 3 and 4, and this is a new development.
So the interesting thing is 100%, well, that's in the statute. Usually rulemaking comes up with notwithstanding, and they'll say in appropriations, like notwithstanding 100%, notwithstanding something, or 100%, they'll fund 100% of their decided formula, which doesn't mean it's 100% of the school cost, because, the conversation I had today was what's not in here. And there are things that aren't considered in there that could impact school costs. One thing, Patrick, does the statute talk about transportation? Like, is
Yeah, 'cause you
transportation
can-
addressed, and how does that impact our transportation contracts and such with that young little children? Like, I would.
Yeah, I think, we have to look at it where the students are located, and if they're in a private daycare, then we can service them there. Ideally, we might want to have them come to our facility. And again, there's no obligation that we would provide the transportation. So those are quirks that we'd have to work out. But a majority of the students would be already in our programs for 4-year-olds.
So we would send staff to them instead of them being in our building?
At times, possibly, depending on the service, and then there'd
Okay.
be times when they would come to us, because again, we want to have them interacting with as many students as possible.
Okay.
So I guess the question is, do we vote on? Is this something we should vote on
I think it would be
as a statement?
I think it would be a positive thing to
Okay.
vote, whatever way you would like to vote this evening. Again, I think it's something that we're going to, every school system in Maine is going to end up
Right.
doing. And I think I want to say they told me last week they have 36 new districts that are coming on board. I don't know if they're all 3 and 4. I think the majority are 3 and 4.
But ours would be 4.
Just
this time.
4-year-olds.
For the year. So if the board is interested, then I think there would be a motion to, how would we phrase it? To accept.
Just simple that
I'm
accept
sorry,
the
point of order.
responsibility.
Yeah.
The vote's not on the agenda. It's a discussion. So how
Well,
do?
it
how
wasn't a
just-
discussion.
Right, so I just want to know if because we paused before with voting on things, if the vote wasn't recorded, wasn't described on the agenda. And I'm not opposing a vote right now, but I just want to make sure things are clear for going into
Yeah.
this. So does that matter at all in terms of the
I
kind of vote we're taking?
think it's more of a confirmation. I mean, because they've already accepted, I mean, we're doing this.
No, I mean, we have June 1st, they need an
Oh,
answer
we have
by.
till June 1st. Okay.
So we've already decided what's the vote.
Well, no, we don't have to. I mean, that's why it was a discussion. It was just, we're doing this unless some people felt we needed to have a vote. We could, but or if people were so many of the board were opposed and said this, I want more information. I can't do this, and we don't want to do this. Then I guess we would have to have a vote. I know what you're saying, because it's when you tell the public it's not a vote on the agenda. Do you still have a vote? You change your mind and have a vote during the meeting?
I mean, it's up to the board. I mean, we can call a special board meeting if you want to do it that way and have a vote on it. Again, it's not a budget implication. It's helping our families.
Right.
But
How do folks feel? I mean, I'm fine either way. I'm fine letting, I mean, I think we should do this. It's not, it doesn't affect the budget. It's for 1 year. If things shifted again and it involved costs from the local level, obviously that would be a different story and we'd have to have that discussion. But it's for 4 years. Kurt, do you have
I was just wondering if we don't make a decision tonight, what happens? And if we don't call a special meeting?
Yeah, I mean, all I know is Jennifer Hopkins from the DOE, she just said she would like to know by June 1st. I think, quite frankly, if we tell her that we need one more month, then I'd like to think that she would understand that if people need more information.
I mean, if
But-
people are more comfortable because it should be on the agenda, we haven't gotten to it yet, but if we're having our meeting June 16th, you could just say, we're voting on June 16th. And if it's a problem, we do it earlier. If it's not, we just do it then. Would people be okay with that? Yeah, go ahead, Anita.
I don't think it's necessary to take a vote.
Okay.
I think we should just let it rest. And we trust Patrick and Katie to do the job we've hired them to do, and they're presenting this to us, and
You just let it go. and we
let
do
it go.
Okay.
I'm confident that they've presented it well, and I think we should be all set with it. I
Okay.
think if we choose to move forward with the vote, it's almost like a not having confidence into them.
No,
Do
I
you
know.
know what
I
I
was,
mean?
yeah.
Talking about
He
them
was
like, you know, if
suggesting
they're
it.
not here
Yeah,
and
it
they're
could be
sitting right here,
perceived
but-
that way. Yeah, okay.
I'm kind of uncomfortable with that.
Okay, that's fine. I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. Okay,
I mean, it's not
That's
it's
fine.
not a vote that's required by
by the state.
by the DOE
Okay.
before to do this. That's
Okay.
all. But
Then I think, then let's just go forward with it then. That's what we'll do.
Can I just get
Yeah, go ahead.
clarification? Patrick, is this something that we're doing then? Are you saying, you're making that this is a statement that this is gonna
Yes.
go forward?
we think this is in the best interest of students
So we're
Yeah.
doing this for next year.
for this coming year.
Okay.
Yep.
It's 4-year-olds, just 4-year-olds. This year it's just 4-year-olds. They've already established where the majority of the kids are. They're in our programs, most of them, and they could work out details for the few others. And this is a good opportunity with it being 100% to see how everything goes and see, if there's any hurdles, anything that we come up against. This is the best way to find out now. So then if, the following year, we're like, okay, 3 and 4-year-olds,
Right.
what's the budget? Can we do it? Then if we need to be more extensive discussion for the following year, we'll do that.
And I mean, I don't know if September might be soon, but September, October, to give you guys a kind of a brief presentation to tell you what we're doing, keep you in the loop.
Yeah, that's great.
How we're spending the money and how we're doing with those services to those students.
All right, then we just move forward.
So can there be a statement or something, kind of public notice put out? Because if this is it's a big thing we're doing here.
Mhm.
We're doing something that, it's not like we're legally required to do it, like the state says we've got to hire and, we have to serve X this, in the future, we're adopting it now, which is fine. I'm not saying that I don't have respect and trust in our administration at all. I'm just looking at it like we're making a big difference. We're adopting something, we're taking something on. Is there like a press release or an announcement that could go out to all of our families, to our districts, to our municipalities that say, we've decided to take on this project at this point in time, because in the future, it will be a legal requirement and this is how we're doing it. And I don't know, just a way to invite.
Yeah, we would
public
put it,
input.
we would, like normal, we would put it on our website, put it in a newsletter, and then we have a draft correspondence, ready to go. Not that we would send it next week, but to those families of 4-year-olds to let them know that not a lot is going to change for them as far as where they end up going for their services, but who services them and under what guidance, that's what's going to change.
I think,
Great.
if I could just add on.
On here. I think the thing that will change for them is that their kids will actually get serviced. I
Because
think
that's what's
there's,
not been happening.
there's a gross problem of students of this age, even in our own buildings, who have an IEP and are supposed to be getting services multiple times a week, and CDS has no one and can't find anyone and it isn't coordinated, not because they don't care, they just don't have the capacity. And so we have students sitting in our buildings who have unfulfilled legal needs. And this allows us to actually, and we can't control that because those students are not supposed to be serviced by our service providers. They're supposed to be serviced by CDS service providers. And so I think the upside is exactly what Patty was saying, which is hopefully we'll be able to find people who we can secure and we'll have all IEP needs being met so we can start to close some of the gaps before students even get into kindergarten. I mean, it's really upsetting when you see some of our pre-K students and you know their backgrounds and you know what their IEP says, and they're supposed to be getting 3 hours of service a day and they're getting 0. I mean, that's not helping them. It's not helping our current teachers, and it's a huge problem.
No, that's a very good point. And I think, however you would phrase that in a newsletter as to I think that's it's good. It's good news. It's a good communication. And that's the kind of thing that should be stated because it also gives reason as to why they're doing this. They know if they give the money to the individual school systems, that's the intent. The intent is that the needs will be met because they haven't had the capacity. So I think that certainly could be put into a communication. All right, anything else on this before we move on? All right, thanks for all your thoughts and comments on it. I think this is a great option, and I'm glad we're going forward with it. So first reading of board policies, no action. And just for the record, I'll just read, this is for staff conduct with students. It's, I guess, GCF, recruit and hire professional staff. GCFB, recruiting and hiring of administrative staff. GCI, professional staff development opportunities. GCOA, supervision and evaluation of professional staff. GCQC, resignation of school unit employees. And I'm assuming this is just because these are things coming up to revision. There was no specific impetus that said, oh, we got to look at these, right? Okay. Because I could sense a theme there, but but those are all good. Did anyone have any questions on the revision, on the edits of those policies? No. Okay. Then thank you to the committee because you did a good job because people don't have questions. So we'll take that on for a vote in June. 10.4 overnight out-of-state field trip requests. We have Woolwich Central School to Boston. And any questions on that? It's an annual event. If not, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the field trip request from Woolwich
Great.
School.
Second? Kurt? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Okay. You guys are funny. All right. We have the 11.0 board goals. Jennifer, any comment on board goals? It's not tonight, okay. And the next meeting dates. So we know that the big district meeting is going to be a week from tomorrow, right? Right after. So after y'all come off your big holiday weekend. Don't forget to show up on Tuesday. And I'm saying that mostly for myself. Don't forget to. But also then the next board meeting now, are we shifting it to, we had sent out a notice. Was everyone okay with June 16th? She can't make that one?
Yeah, she said
Okay.
move. She said move without her.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
She's cool with it. All right. And if she's the only one, then yeah, go ahead.
And then we'll send you out what we call a management summary, but remember the kind of like your talking points to make sure we just keep organized for the meeting next Tuesday in the auditorium. So motion second, and then how to explain each article. So, and if you have any questions on that, but Deb and I will try to get that to you by Wednesday, Thursday at the latest. John Morse again. Yeah, I think it's his last, well, he always says that. But,
He always says it's his last year. Okay. That's fine. All right. So we have a moderator that'll be here in the theater.
We need to elect a moderator, but John's
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay. If nothing else, Megan,
Make a motion to adjourn.
and we have a second. Second by Anita. All in favor. Thank you all. Thank you again, Aurora. We'll see you at graduation.
We're actually visiting here Wednesday.